Good morning, saints of God. Welcome to Wake Up with First Service. I am your host, Minister Morris. When it comes to Jacob's 12 sons, one son in particular stands out, and that son is Joseph. Now, Joseph was the first two sons of Jacob and Rachel, and he was his father's favorite. And his father made it very apparent that Joseph was his favorite son when he gave Joseph a token of his love, which was a multicolored cloak. This, along with a couple of dreams that Joseph had, made him hated by his brothers. Now, in our program this morning, we are going to look at three life lessons that we can take from a few chapters out the story of Joseph. So Joseph had a rocky beginning. He had some rough patches in his life, but we see that at the end, God did bring him through better than when he started. So throughout his life, Joseph is many lessons that we can learn from him, but today we're going to focus on just three. And that's the title of our lesson this morning, Life Lessons Chapter, and then we'll finish off with Genesis, the 41st chapter. So let's go to Genesis 37. In Genesis 37, verses 5 through 11, we are going to see our very first lesson that Joseph teaches us throughout his life story. So let's go down verse 5 through 11, 37th chapter of Genesis, and see what this very first lesson that Joseph has for us about life. Verse 5. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. So what do we see in this very first section? This very first section of this life that Joseph has, is that the lesson we can take from this section of scripture is that we need to have a dream. See, God gave Joseph these dreams, and they were about where he was going to be in his latter days. He was going to be in a position of power. He was going to be in a position of authority in his latter days. And we need to have a dream. Where do we want to be in the future? Where do we want to be right now? What goals do we want to achieve? Where do we want to go maybe on our job? Do we want to move up the corporate ladder? Do we want to get to a higher education? So we need to have dreams. We need to have goals, and we need to have an idea where we want to be in this life. But as far as Joseph go, we see that in both of Joseph's dreams, he was in a position of power over his brothers and his mother and his father. And this made his brothers hate him even more because not only was he favored more than his brothers in life, but also in his dreams, Joseph was favored more than his brothers, his mother, and his father. So, what can we expect based on what we've read in these scriptures about us having a dream, us having a goal, us having an idea where we're moving up these type of ladders, the corporate ladder, the higher education ladder, just wanting to, maybe our dream is to live in a better neighborhood or things, or go to a different school. But we need to have a dream. We need to have a goal. We need to have an idea of where we want to be. So what can we expect from these scriptures about us having a dream? Well, the first thing that we see as far as Joseph goes, and as far as many of us goes, is that when we have a dream, these dreams come with consequences. We see that Joseph's dreams, both of them, were very appealing to him and they were very in favor of him. But when he told these dreams to his brothers and to his fathers, we see that there were some negative consequences because of the dreams. The first thing that happened because of these dreams was that his brothers hated him even more. See, they already hated him because he had favor with his father, and his father gave him this cloak of multicolors. But now, not only does he get the love of his father, does he get this outward expression of his father's love in this coat, but now he has these dreams in which he's over his brothers. They're making obeisance to him, which means they're paying honor to him as being in a position of power. The other thing that happened, the other consequence, was that his brothers wanted to kill him. And this is a very sad consequence, all because of a dream. So let's look at Genesis 37 and 18 and see how bent out of shape these dreams had his brothers. So let's go down to 37, Genesis 37 and 18, and see what the mindset of Joseph's brothers. Genesis 37 and 18 reads, "And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him." So Joseph comes out, he's looking for his brothers. Individual points Joseph in the right direction where he can find his brothers. Joseph goes to look for his brothers, and his brothers see him coming to them afar off. And before he even gets to them, they're already conspiring on how to kill him, how to get rid of him. And it wasn't because Joseph had a attitude problem or Joseph was hard to deal with. This is all because Joseph had favor on his life. He had favor, and this favor was greater than the favor that his father showed. This is the favor that the father was showing on Joseph. So, what else happened because of these dreams? Well, let's go down to verses 23 and 24 of Genesis, the 37th chapter, and we'll see what else happened as far as his brothers are concerned about them not liking the dreams that Joseph had. Genesis 37, 23 and 24 reads, "And it came to pass, when Joseph was come to his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and they cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it." So the third thing that we see, the consequences of these dreams, is that his brothers not only hated him, they not only wanted to kill him, but before they could even carry out any of these things, they destroyed that coat. See, the coat was the first step, the first outward expression that we see that Joseph had favor on his life. And this favor came from his father. But these brothers, they didn't like the coat. They didn't like this outward expression of Jacob showing how much more that he liked Joseph. He loved Joseph over the rest of his brothers. So not only did they destroy his coat, they threw him in a pit. And luckily for Joseph, this pit did not have no water. So they just wanted to get him out the way. They threw him in this pit. They stripped him of his coat. And we know later on that they would destroy this coat. They would put animal blood on it to fool Jacob into thinking that Joseph had been killed by some wild beasts. Now, here's the thing. The reason this coat was such a thorn in the flesh of his brothers was, once again, this coat represented the favor that Joseph had over his brothers, and this coat represented the fact that Jacob loved Joseph just a little bit more. He favored Joseph just a little bit more, and all this did was fuel the fire for his brothers to hate him even more. So we've seen that his brothers hated him. His brothers plotted to kill him. They stripped him of his coat and then threw him in a pit. But in this last one, we'll see that that wasn't even enough for his brothers. In Genesis 37 and 28, we're going to see the final thing that his brothers do to him, all because of the favor that is on his life. Let's go down to Genesis 37 and 28 and see this last consequence that is going to affect Joseph in a mighty way. It says, then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and they lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. So not only did they hate him, not only did they strip him of his coat and throw him in a pit, they plotted to kill him, but he was saved by his younger brother. Now, him being in the pit ain't good enough because he's still nearby. So what they want to do is just get rid of Joseph altogether. So they pull him up out this pit, and then they sell him to these Midianite merchantmen, to the Ishmaelites, and they're on their way to Egypt. So they sell him to these people, and they just take him along with them. So now the brothers have pretty much gotten rid of Joseph. He's not nowhere close. He's not in a pit. He can't make his way back home. We don't have to worry about Joseph. We don't have to worry about his coat. And we definitely don't have to worry about having to see all this love and all this favor being poured out on him. So the brothers are being rubbed the wrong way just by the favor that Joseph has from his father and from the Father above. But there are other aspects to these consequences that come from these dreams. And the second aspect is that everyone is not going to be on board with our dream. Now, the first consequence with them hating him and the brothers wanted to kill him, that had to do with them. That's because they didn't like Joseph. They didn't like the fact that he had a dream. They didn't like the fact that he had favor. But when we get down to this second consequence, which means everybody's not going to be on board, well, they might like you. They might like your dream. They might like our idea. They might like the fact that we want to do bigger and better things. But the problem is they don't like the idea. They don't like the dream. They don't like what God has instilled in us, the plan he has given to us to move forward. Now, everybody's not going to be on board with our dreams. They might not like it. They might not be feeling what we're trying to do, the goal we're trying to reach. Some people might think we should try something else. You might try to give them a dream about something we want to do or want to achieve, and they might think that we can't do it, or they might think that, well, maybe you're trying to do too much all at one time. And then finally, they might think it's just not the right time. Maybe they think we should wait before we try to reach this goal. Wait till we get into a place more financially stable. Maybe we should wait till we get more time on our job or learn some more aspects of the goal that we're trying to reach. So we see that even when we have a great dream, a blessed dream that comes from the Lord, a goal that we're trying to reach, something that we want to do to make our life more prosperous, people might not like it because of us. They might not like us and the fact that we're being blessed and highly favored. But then on the other side, they might like us. They might be our friends. They might be our families, but they're just not feeling the idea. So we see that with these dreams, having a dream is great, but we have to expect that everybody's not going to be on board and everybody is not going to like it. So that's our first life lessons from Joseph. Have a dream, have a goal, have a point in your life where you want to reach. Keep striving and keep trying to reach that mark of a higher calling. So let's move on. Let's go to chapter 39. And in chapter 39, verses 7 through 13, we're going to see our second lesson, our second life lesson that is coming from Joseph. So let's go down to chapter 39, verses 7 through 13. And let's see what this next life lesson is. And it reads, And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he has to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither has he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men in the house wherein. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. So what is this second life lesson of Joseph? It's very simple. We should hold on to our integrity. So what we see here in this chapter here is Joseph is now the overseer in Potiphar's house. He's still being blessed by God. And Joseph served and he found grace and he was a prosperous man. And all was going well until Potiphar's wife wanted Joseph. So what can we learn about holding on to our moral and ethical principles, holding on to our integrity? Why is that so important in going through this thing that we call life? And being blessed means that we have to hold on to our integrity more, because sin and these fiery darts are going to keep coming at us on a constant basis. So what is it about these moral and ethical principles that we need to learn and we need to be aware of? Well, the first thing is, according to what we just read in the scripture, in the midst of our walk with the Lord, temptation will come. Remember, in Genesis 39:7, it said it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. And she said, lie with me. So Joseph is being blessed now. He's been elevated to overseer over the Potiphar's house. It's a far cry from where he was at not too long ago in a pit, waiting on his brothers to possibly kill him. The second thing we could take from this is that we have to take into account all we have and all that we have to lose. Joseph takes into account everything that God has blessed him with, and everything that God has blessed him with, he can also lose these things. He said this in the 8th verse when he refused his master's wife. And then what does he say? My master wotteth not me what is with me in the house. And he has committed everything that he has to Joseph's hand. So Joseph has power. Joseph has authority. Joseph has a good standing with his master, with Potiphar. So he has a whole lot to lose by not holding on to his integrity. So what Joseph's choosing here is to hold on to his integrity and to let go of all these earthly and fleshly desires that's trying to strip away and take away everything that God has blessed Joseph with. We have to remember, what does Satan come to do? He comes to steal, he comes to kill, and he comes to destroy. The third thing we can learn is that in the midst of being blessed, when we are taking into account everything God has blessed us with and everything that we can lose, we got to understand that temptations, they're persistent. We rebuke them the first time does not mean they're going to go away. Some temptations are persistent, and that just goes to show you where we are in this life, that Satan and the devil is trying so hard to get us off this square. Just look at what happened with Joseph, just dealing with Potiphar's wife. In verse 7, she said, come lie with me. Then in verse 10, she asked him, or rather she told him, every day to lie with her or to what? Be with her. And then in verse 12, she just got tired of talking to him. And what does she do? She caught him by the garment. She grabbed his garment, grabbed him, and said, lie with me. So what we see here is that this temptation for Joseph to let go of his integrity and gravitate more to his fleshy desires were persistent. And every time that she came to him, she ramped up the intensity from just asking him to telling him to grabbing him physically and saying, "You're going to lie with me." So we have to understand that in life, when we are being blessed, when we are being elevated, when we are trying to reach the goal, reach the dream that we have, temptations are going to come and they're going to be very persistent in trying to get us off our square. But we have to hold on to our moral and ethical principles. This is why God has allowed us to pursue these dreams, pursue these marks of a higher calling, because we are holding on to our integrity and not letting these things go. So what we've seen so far are two life lessons. Have a dream, but know these dreams come with consequences, because either people don't like you or they don't like the dream. And the second one is that we have to hold on into our integrity throughout this life, because that's how we stay in good standing with God. That's how we stay on the right side of the Lord, by keeping our moral and ethical principles. So let's go to our very last life lesson that we are going to see from Joseph. This one takes us to the 41st chapter of Genesis, and we'll go through verses 40 through 52. And this is a very important one, because we sometimes let it slip uh, once we receive, once what we've been praying for has manifested in our lives. We tend to get lazy. We tend to get complacent in where we are. So life lesson 3, coming from Genesis, the 41st chapter, verses 40 through 52, is very simple. We need to be good stewards, which means be a good supervisor, be a good manager, be a good one who looks after. We need to be good stewards over the success that God has blessed us with. We need to take care of it. We need to be appreciative of it. We need to look after it, and we need to nurture that success and keep moving forward. That's how we pay homage to the one who's gave us the success in the first place. So let's go to Genesis, 41st chapter, verses 40 and 41. We'll start there first, and we're going to see how this success is coming into Joseph's life. We already see him in Potiphar's house as the overseer, and he has everything under his control, but God is not done with him yet. God is really going to lay this success on Joseph, because it is going to be a time where God is going to need a man like Joseph, and the people of Egypt is going to need a man like Joseph, who had a dream, who's full of integrity, and who is a good steward over his success. So Genesis 40, 40 through 41 reads, "Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou." And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, "See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt." So what do we see again? Joseph is still being blessed by the Lord. And he went from being over Potiphar's house and over the things of his house. Now he's moved on up. He's no longer with Potiphar. He's now with Pharaoh. And now Pharaoh said, "I'm going to set you over the whole land of Egypt." That's success. That's being elevated. That's moving up. And we see that Joseph did nothing to compromise his integrity, compromise his moral or ethical principles. He stuck to what worked for him, and that's being an upright man of God. And we see that because of this mindset, because he had a dream, because he's holding on to his integrity, God can use him. And God is steady elevating and steady blessing him. So what happens next? In verses 42 through 45, we're going to see how this success, how these blessings are going to just keep being poured out onto Joseph, and how now Pharaoh is blessing Joseph by moving him up in power and position. But we're going to see in verses 42 through 45 the outward expression of success, outward expression of being blessed. Because when God blesses us, people will know it. When we get blessed on our job with a pay raise, and we got new clothes, we got a new car, people recognize when we have been blessed with success, and Joseph is no different. So let's see how Joseph is now, how his success is being manifested on an outward level, where everybody else can recognize it and see it. Verses 42 through 45 reads, "And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paneah, and he gave him to his wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. So what do we see here? Joseph has been elevated. Joseph is successful. And not only do he know it, not only does Pharaoh know it, but everybody in the land knows it because that success is now being seen outwardly. People will see Joseph. They see him with the clothes. They see him with the ring. They see him with the chain. They see him in the chariot, a position of power riding next to Pharaoh. So everything on the outside is now matching everything on the inside. And that is Joseph is successful. He's successful. And he's been a good steward over his success. So what does this section of scripture show us? There were signs of him being blessed. When we are blessed, there has to be signs of us being blessed. Yes, we know God has blessed us, but how do we know he's blessed us? By our prayers being answered, by our supplication being answered, by things being manifested in our life that we've asked for and things that we have only thought about, but God knows that also. And because of his grace and his mercy, he has manifested that in our life too. So there are outward signs of our success. Look at verse 42. Pharaoh gave Joseph his ring. He gave him some fine clothes. He put a gold chain on him. He rode him in the second chariot, and the people gave him respect. He gave Joseph authority. He gave Joseph power. And then finally, in verse 45, Pharaoh changed his name and gave him a wife. So all the things that Joseph has went through, all the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, all the mess that he's went through to get to this point, there is no signs of that. He does not look like what he's been through because right now Joseph is successful. Joseph has fine clothes. Joseph has a chariot. Joseph has a ring. So all these things that God showed him in these dreams are now being manifested in his life. All Joseph had to do was be faithful, hold on to that dream, have some integrity. And now with this success, all he has to do now is be a good steward over it. So how was Joseph a good steward over his success? And this is very important because once God blesses us, once God makes us successful, once God elevates us and puts us in a place of position and power where not only we know we've been blessed, but other people know we've been blessed, what do we have to do to be a good steward over that blessing and over that success? Well, the first thing he did was that after he got successful, he still did what he was supposed to do. Joseph didn't get lazy. Joseph didn't get complacent. Look at verses 47 through 49 in the 41st chapter of Genesis. Look what it says. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the stand of the sea, as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. See, Joseph was given power. Joseph was given authority. Joseph was given power and authority over the whole land of Egypt. So what was Joseph to do? Just flash and ride around in a chariot, wiping the dust off his clothes, fixing his chain, rearranging his ring to make it fit better? No, Joseph kept doing what he was supposed to do. He had a job to do as being over all Egypt. That wasn't just a title without any work. That wasn't just a title that he can throw out there so people will respect him more. No, Joseph had a job to do. And he began by laying up all this food, all this corn, all this wheat, all this grain, all this harvest, because he knew that a famine was coming. But before that famine came, there were going to be 7 years where you're going to have an overabundance. There's going to be 7 years when there's not going to be an issue of a problem. And what we need to do is what we've been taught, that in times of peace, we need to prepare for war. In times of plenty, we need to prepare just in case we have to go through a season of leanness. And this is what Joseph is doing, not just for him. This is for the whole land of Egypt. So Joseph gathered food in the 7 plentiful years, thus preparing for the famine to come. And by him preparing, by him being a good steward, the people was going to make it out just fine. The second thing we see is that we should never forget where our success came from. And we see that Joseph honored the one who also provided that success. So let's look at verses 51 and 52 and see that Joseph does remember the bridge that brought him over, and then he's going to honor that individual, which is God, in a very special way. So let's look at verses 51 and 52. And it says, and Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. And this means, for God says, he has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So because of his success came from God, he named his 2 sons after what the Lord did in his life. The first one, he made him forget all his toil and all his father's house, as well as how God caused him to be fruitful in the land of his affliction. See, God blessed him in a way that he shouldn't have been blessed. His house was against him. He had all these issues and all these problems, but God still blessed him in a land that said otherwise. God still raised him up in a land and in a household that said otherwise. This is how we can continue to be good stewards over our success, by doing what we need to do, doing what we are appointed to do by God, doing what God gave us the authority and the power to do, as well as never forgetting the one who chose us in the first place, and by honoring the one who made it all possible. This is what Joseph did, and this is why he was a good steward over his success. By doing what he was supposed to do, then we should do what we're supposed to do. Because after we become successful, we got to keep doing it. We got to keep moving. We got to keep grinding. And we should never forget where our success, where our blessing came from. So what we've seen in today's program were some experiences in the life of Joseph that can give us a little heads up, a little edge in our life, so that we can learn from as we go through this journey that we call life, how to keep our success going, how to keep being blessed, and how we can keep being used by God. So as we go through this life, as we go through this journey, maturing both naturally and spiritually, so that God's plan for us can be manifested through us. So I would like to encourage you, like this lesson has encouraged us all this morning, keep dreaming, keep having dreams, keep trying to move up, keep trying to do bigger and better things, keep trying to be better than you was yesterday. Be a better version of yourself today. And keep holding on to your integrity. I know it's hard. I know the world makes it very appealing. It makes it very alluring to step off our moral and ethical principles and enjoy the flesh. But I encourage you, if we hold on to our integrity, we can be just as successful or even more successful than our brother Joseph. And finally, be a good steward over your success. God gave it to you. He blessed you with it. He gave it to you for a reason. And God doesn't make mistakes. So if he has blessed you with success, blessed you with power, blessed you with authority, whatever you did to get it, then I encourage you to keep doing to keep it. And keep honoring God and keep praising and worshiping God, because without him, there is no success. Without him, there is no ladder to climb. And without him, there is no blessing. So that's all the time we have this morning. In our program, tune in next week. I encourage you to tune in next week. In our program next week, we'll be examining Matthew, the 6th chapter, on how our prayers, our supplications, as saints of God, can be the most effective. So that's going to be a pretty good lesson, a really good lesson that we can learn from. So be back here next week, same time, same channel. And as always, I encourage you to tune in to the 11 o'clock hour for the hour of power, where our leaders of the gospel are going to give us a word and give us a teaching so that we can hold on to our dreams, so that we can hold on to our integrity, and so that we can continue to be good stewards over our success. So on behalf of Miracle Corner, I have been your host today, Minister Morris, and as always, be safe, be encouraged, be blessed. Until we meet again.